So if I open up the collarbone and I open up number 2 behind your jaw, number 3, let's say number 3, this spot behind your head, let's just say behind your head, is already moving towards your collarbone.
Right.
Because you just cleared the way.
Right.
So now, if you want to rub the back of your head, then by all means, go ahead. My friends, you have to help me out. Then it keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. And so does the bacteria, because you have quote unquote good bacteria, quote unquote bad bacteria, but you need all of them and they need to work with each other and they keep each other in check until there's a tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
This is really important. Everything in biology has a tipping point, which means that it's good up to a point where it's no longer good. Variability, and variety. You know what all 3 of those words mean? Different.
Yeah, you're doing something different.
Just doing something different, all right? And then here's the thing. So I tell people that every movement you do in your life will move lymphatics because it has to. They're just coming along for the ride, okay? But sometimes those lymphatics are so congested, so stagnated, so restricted because you've got excess tension in the tissues. And they even when you're moving, they can't move because they're just too blocked. That's why I have you do the Big 6, because the Big 6 will manually help remove some of the tension and the tightness and the things that are stuck.
Hello, friends. In this video, I talk again with Dr. Perry Nickelston. In our first video a few weeks ago, we talked about the lymphatic system, the importance of what the lymphatic system does. Well, in this video, we get into the meat and the potatoes of how to get the lymph system moving, how to unblock the blockages, how to make it flow, and why that's so important. And I will tell you this. Since talking with him a few days ago, did my own, let's say, routine of what he said to do, especially listen when he talks about the Big 6, do it in the right order, as he says. I've noticed a huge difference. So, I want you to have fun watching this. We've had a lot of requests for this video, and here it is with Dr. Perry Nickelston explaining exactly how to get that lymph system moving and unblocked. We'll get it flowing. Enjoy and feel free to share. And by the way, the best way to support the work we do here to help bring more education like this to the world and help another person and another person and another person is to hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or hit the follow button, or if you're on any other kind of an audio platform, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. Share it. Thank you so much. Here you go. Get ready. This is a really great one. Dr. Perry, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, my friend, I'm doing wonderful. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me back on your show. It's always lovely to be here.
Always great to have you join me. That last show we did, where we got a lot of views, a lot of likes, a lot of questions. So the demand is there for more mojo about that lymphatic system. Yeah, and Happy New Year to you too, by the way.
Thank you very much. Well, it's really lovely to hear that because, lymphatics are a passion of mine. They changed my life, and it's nice to know that people are interested in it and want to learn more. I've got a ton more, so
I know you do,
no
man.
problem there.
I know you do. Well, it's funny. I was listening to our last episode here that you and I did a few days ago. I've been through it a few times because there's just so much information there. And I think maybe for some, if we're doing a visual demonstration, well, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or something, well, it's going to be, you won't be able to see this. So I'll be as descriptive as I can. But the bottom line is, there's so much just from the last one, just getting things going. I started using the skin brush, by the way.
Oh,
And
lovely. That's great.
oh man,
Yeah.
I'm starting down in the feet brushing. I learned somewhere brush towards the heart, but I'm especially spending time in these areas where I know there's a higher population of nodes, right? Which I don't know where they are in the body altogether. I mean, I know there's
I'll
like
tell you.
700 or more, but I've been a
Yeah.
lot up here in the clavicle area. And what a
Yeah.
difference! Yeah.
It's
So
huge. I'm not sure if we covered it in the last episode, but it's good to let people know where they are, because then all this stuff makes sense, if I may.
yeah,
Because it's always good to review things anyway for those that may have heard it. And information is always new to somebody who doesn't know it yet. That's one of my
exactly.
favorite
Thanks.
phrases, because there's always somebody who doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So you've got roughly 600 or 700 lymph nodes in the body. I mean, you may see different numbers based on the study that you're reading. I just want for people to know it's a lot. Okay. And
Yeah.
what's the job of the node? Well, they're basically mini drain toilets that are designed to drain waste, but they're also immune system sensors, which is really important because when they trap things, they tell your immune system what those things are. So your immune system is able to scan whatever's there and then give an appropriate response. That's really important for people to know. So there are scanners for your immune system, and there are toilets, drainage for waste. Basically anything that you don't want in your body and you want to get out, those 600 to 700 toilets do it.
Yeah.
Now, they're located in strategic places. Out of the 700, I'm going to just say 700, 1/3 of that number is from the collarbone up.
Wow. 1/3.
So 1/3 of that number is the collarbone up. So I just want you to think about that logically for a moment of how powerful that statement is. But then also think kind of like how your body, why would it be designed that way, do you think? What sits up in the head and the neck that's really important? Your brain, right?
Exactly.
So its primary job is to help drain toxins from the brain and keep your cervical spine and brain stem healthy.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so everything below it can function well. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you got most of it there. The largest amount of lymph in general is in your gut and your abdomen. Okay.
Wow.
Now the reason that is because the majority of your immune system is in your gut. Up to 70%, I think, is the average number. So if most of your immune system is in your gut, it makes sense that the largest part of your immune system, which is your lymphatics, should be there too. So they work with each other. In essence, what that means to me is that if you have any issues with your lymphatics, you'll likely end up with some gut issues. And if you have gut issues, you'll likely end up with some lymphatic issues. But then your listeners may have heard of from following your work, and especially with Parkinson's, there's an intimate relationship between the health of the gut and the health of the brain. So there's no mistake that the lymph lives in those two places. So they're going to play a role in the health of both. And the third place is, beneath the skin, because they want to help, because the skin is an organ too, because you get stuff out when you sweat, right?
Right.
But you also absorb a lot of nasty toxins and stuff through your skin.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons why when you are barraged with all of these things that people put on their body with detergents, oils, makeup, perfume, that goes into the body, and then your body's got to get rid of that stuff. Well, the lymph's going to be a big part of that. So those are the biggest places that they're located. But a couple of things will help this lymphatic fluid move to get rid of that muck so it gets out. And movement is one of the primary ways. Moving your body does it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The other one is breathing, which we can get into again because that's really, really important. But breathing is also a form of movement, right?
Right.
Because you're moving, your body parts and your organs when you breathe, if you can breathe correctly. So movement moves lymph. Well, your body is an incredible design. So those lymph nodes live in clusters or communities, and they live around the primary joints of your body that are, here's the word, supposed to move the most.
Okay.
Your big articular joints, which just happens to sit where my big six are. My big six resets are the primary hinge joints and rotation joints of your body that are supposed to move the most. Your shoulder joint is one of them. Your hip joint is another one. The groin, crease of the groin.
Right.
Your knee, the back of your knee is another one.
Yeah, back
And
of the
then
knee.
and then your abdomen is one, because that should move a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other one is at the top of the neck, below the skull, where most of the motion in your whole neck happens at the first three bones in your neck.
Sure.
And then, of course, the drain has to move. That's the collarbone. So those are the six. So what I tell people is that I want you to think of what happens to all of those areas when you sit too long or too often. You close them down. Right?
Yeah. It seems like everything it slows down. Muscles can get, stiff, tight, shortened, if you will, in some cases.
Right.
Your heart's not beating as fast. Your blood's not pumping as much. Your respiratory rate's down. Everything's down. The more
And
we
you're
sit,
not moving.
the longer it stays down. Hence what, just referring to John Rady from Harvard, who I've interviewed, as humans, we were designed to move.
Yes.
We're supposed to be moving and not sedentary.
And we do the exact opposite of that.
Sadly, that is true, yes. So and, movement, then, for those who are asking, how do I get my lymph system moving, flowing, doing its job? Well, so answer number one, or possibility number one, is get moving more.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first step.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, it really is, because that's how basics are, right?
Yeah.
I tell people this is when they say what kind of movement, my answer is always yes. I just want you to do more than you're doing now, but not so much more, but different. So I'd like for you to have a variety in your movement. Do things that you don't normally do. Okay, that's good for first of all, that's really great for your brain and your nervous system, because you're doing different things. Okay. Right. So I always tell people, just move more of yourself, more often, more ways, and one of my favorites, just more environments, different places for you to do that.
Okay? That's a good idea. Yep.
Yeah, that's why I like movements that are available to us all the time, but we don't necessarily do them. Sometimes because we live in a world of convenience, where we're going to take the elevator instead of the stairs. We're gonna park close to the mall as opposed to far away from the mall. And one of the things I tell people is make your life a little bit more inconvenient when it comes to movement, and you'll make a big difference in your life. Don't take the easy way out, because most humans will.
Absolutely.
Most humans will take the easy movement path when you do it. And I mean, that's just a smart play, because your brain is trying to conserve energy. And when you don't have a lot of energy because you're tired and fatigued and lethargic, you don't want to take the stairs. But the key is you need to take the stairs to get out of it, because you're stuck in the quicksand. It's just that you have to dose it. You just do a little bit, you don't have to go crazy. So it's just move yourself more often. And my favorite ways, honestly, are simply rebounding, jumping up and down very lightly on the balls of your feet using your calf muscles. I don't want people to leave the ground. Let me finish this real quick.
Yep.
I don't want you to totally jump off the ground and land on it, because most people don't know how to absorb impact, and they may hurt the ankles, the hips, the knees, the spine. You just lightly, like mini calf pumps like that, standing up. And if you have any issues with balance, just hold on to something. Or you can even just start seated and just pumping your calves. That'll begin somewhere. And then the other one is just walking, brisk walking. Those two will change your life.
I've seen you do the calf thing, the pumps, balls of the feet on your YouTube channel. I mean, how simple is that, really? How simple, but also how effective.
I'll tell you what, I had so many people send me a message of first of all, how much fun it was. But they couldn't believe how much better it made them feel from doing something so simple.
Exactly.
Because it's really powerful, because physiologically it does a lot. Because when you jump up and down, you're moving the fluids up and down against gravity, because gravity is always pushing down on you, right? It's trying to compress you. But you're also jumbling up your belly and your organs, which is where most of your lymphatics live and most of your inflammation and most of your stiffness. But you pump the calf muscles, and the calf muscles are, in Eastern medicine, I may have said this before, considered your second heart, because they pump the vein flow back up towards your heart. They help get rid of that stagnation. That's one of the reasons why walking is so great, right?
I didn't know that.
When I mean walking, I mean brisk walking, where you're actually moving your shoulder joints with your hip joints, so you're getting some rotation in your center, your belly, right? I don't want you walking with a phone in your hand, because first of all,
that really
dangerous.
it skews the symmetry of arm swing, rotation. Probably, skews everything.
Yeah, well, think about that. So when you walk, you get this kind of little twisting in the body, like little torquing. And I always tell people this analogy, like if you had a towel that was really saturated with liquid and water, how would you want to get that water moving out of it as efficiently as possible? You twist the towel, right?
Yep.
So humans are designed to move and twist, but that's the very opposite of what sitting is. So sitting is just compression. And here's the beautiful thing. Walking seems so simple. I mean, it's actually not simple, because it took you quite a long time to learn how to do it. You just take it for granted now. But I learned from Dr. Stuart McGill, who was the preeminent physician for lower back injuries. And he said that brisk, walking is nature's back balm. It's the elixir, if you will, for helping back pain and helping prevent back pain. So that's an added bonus.
Biggie.
As well.
How much back pain do we see? You've got to see it all the time. I see it every day. Low back pain, back pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to get back pain if you don't move a lot, if you're very stagnant. Or, let's take back to what I said before, is you can also get back pain because you do the same kind of movement all the time. That's called repetitious microtrauma movement, right? Over and over and over and over, and then the callus builds up, and then all of a sudden, yesterday you were okay and today you're not. That's why the movement, my friend Joanne Elphinston, who is a brilliant physical therapist, calls it the 3 V's of movement. It's called variation, variability, and variety. Variation, variability, and variety. You know what all 3 of those words mean? Different.
Yeah, you're doing something different.
Just doing something different. All right. And then here's the thing. So I tell people that every movement you do in your life will move lymphatics, because it has to. They're just coming along for the ride. Okay. But sometimes those lymphatics are so congested, so stagnated, so restricted, because you've got excess tension in the tissues, and they even when you're moving, they can't move because they're just too blocked. That's why I have you do the big six, because the big six will manually help remove some of the tension and the tightness and the things that are stuck. So now when you do move, you have the capability to actually move the fluids through those blocks. Does that make sense? So that's the missing ingredient, because I have a lot of people say, Doc, I train all the time. I move all the time. Shouldn't my lymphatic system be moving well? The operative word is it should, but it doesn't mean that it is. Okay. And as I said before, sometimes that repetitive motion and movement all the time, your tissues lay down tension on lines of stress because they have to adapt to the forces that are coming against it, right? And that's coming into it all the time. I mean, you can get force injuries just lying in bed. That's what's called a pressure sore or a bed sore from too much pressure. So if those have lines of tension, that blocks fluid flow.
Yep.
So that's why you have to be able to ease tension. You need to be able to get tension, but you also need to be able to let it go, ease the tension. And that's how you learn to control fascia, the movement, right?
Yeah. I have a question. So actually, a comment first. So like a lot of things, it doesn't necessarily involve rocket science to get your lymphatic system moving. So you can bounce on your, balls of your feet, do the calf thing. You can walk briskly, swing your arms, because you get that reciprocal arm, leg, trunk rotation. And I know what I was going to say. I'll never forget Primal Chains, the first workshop you did. I was there, the Kinetic PT, and I was sitting on the floor. You were talking about. I stole this from you, man, and I use it, and I give you credit, of course. But I said, because we see a lot of diminished arm swing in Parkinson's and other areas, right? So I say, listen, we got to smooth out this gait. Here's one thing we need to do: is we need to learn to walk like a badass.
Yeah.
And that's what you called it. And it was beautiful. You're just standing up tall. You got rock tape on. You're looking like a tough guy, because you are a tough guy. And you had your index fingers pointed, and you're like reaching forward with your right hand pointing the right index finger towards the left big toe, then alternating and over-exaggerating the movement. But the thing was, the breakdown was so powerful. And if this is like 9 years ago or something, or whenever it was, and I didn't understand gait nearly as well back then. And that illustration was beautiful, because there is trunk rotation, there is reciprocal arm, leg, shoulder, hip. If it doesn't happen, things are compromised. You're not moving that well. So hence the twisting of the torso, getting the lymph moving there too. Beautiful. But also, if you're briskly walking, you're doing some zone 2, which we already know from so much data. There's so much data out there. Wow, that's really good for longevity, some amount of conditioning, and fat burn. Woo, who knew? It comes down to movement again. Walk. How cool. Right, so it's really cool.
Well, you can combine those too. So I tell people is that you can do our big six. I always tell people to do the big six before you move, because it's going to ease tension in the 6 primary places of the body that need to move the most. You're going to get also the blood flow moving around those areas, not just lymph. But when I tell you to slap and tap and rub, in those regions, that's actually sensory input into the joints and the mechanoreceptors and the skin, because you're slapping it and you're rubbing it. So what you're also doing is that you're giving your brain a sensory input awareness of your primary joints before you move them. Yeah. So you're actually going to be less prone to injury, because your brain knows where your joints are, because you just slapped them and you just rubbed them.
Yeah,
that
good
makes sense.
Point. Yeah.
So there's a lot of neurology going in that as well. And then so do your big six, start to do your brisk walk. And then why don't you just stop and do about 30 seconds to a minute of your mini rebounding calf pumps. And then you walk again. So you intermix it in between, right?
Love it. I have a question. Does the lymphatic flow include circulation of oxygen at all?
No, that's through the blood. So
Okay.
yeah,
I just wondered about that because we know that we need oxygen for our muscles to do their job, so blood's going to deliver that. So no oxygen in the lymphatic. That's waste. We're talking about toilets.
yeah. Lymphatic is gonna transfer your fatty acids.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
and so that's a big part of what they do. And they're also going to be the transport of metabolic cellular waste. So
Okay.
that's a huge chunk of what they get rid of, as well as the exogenous toxin stuff that gets into you that's trying to take you out.
Mm-hmm.
But when cells die, they have to get out of you too. And
Sure.
when cells use oxygen, right? Well, they use the oxygen to create energy through the mitochondria and the Krebs cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
ATP, all that good stuff. Well, when you burn fuel like that, you create waste just like you do in your car.
Sure.
And so healthy cells make waste, and also unhealthy cells make waste. And then that waste has to get out. The primary
Okay.
exit route are through lymphatics.
Okay.
So if the lymphatics can't remove waste faster than you make it, what
We got a
happens?
problem.
Yeah, you get stuck with metabolic waste and
Mm-hmm.
toxins and whatever. I call it muck because it encompasses everything. And
Right.
the way that your immune system responds to muck is through a protective response,
Mm-hmm.
and that's known as inflammation.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. So let's say somebody's doing this. They're going for the walk. They're doing the bounces. They're doing the big six, but it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
What would you advise? Is there any self-administered technique you'd recommend, or would you go to somebody? I just heard, just not even a few days ago, about somebody who does lymphatic massages here. I don't know
Yeah,
who the person is, but
I would always encourage you if you have it available to you and you can find it, which it's easier to find now because more people are getting trained in lymphatic massages. You can just type into your Google search in lymphatic specialist near me, and
okay.
I'm sure some will show up that to do your self-care technique so you have empowerment every day to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But also see someone who can do it for you. It's a mixture of both worlds. Because one, you get to lay down and not have any tension anywhere. Somebody else is
Yeah.
doing it for you. So it's very relaxing from even a mental standpoint to have another person be able to take care of you at the same
Yeah,
time,
imagine so.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and there's a lot of different parameters that go into lymphatics. I mean, the big six is just the basic fundamental beginning place that you start. It's this simple awareness that you should be looking at your lymphatics and a place to begin. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also many other systems of your body that get rid of waste, what they call detoxification. I try not to use that word because it's almost like a trigger word these days.
Excuse me. Sure.
It's just waste trying to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that a lot through how well your gut works, how well
Mm-hmm.
your liver works, your lungs, and your ability to poop. That's to have bowel movements, because if you're constipated, you're going to be backed up with waste, and then that becomes toxic and inflammatory to your system as well. But many people, when they start to work the lymphatics and they get better blood flow to the gut, they get pooping. They're able to go that way. It works
Well,
both ways.
I don't know the stats on this. I just know that a lot of the population in general, for many reasons, let's just say lack of movement could be one, Dietary choices could be another, or lifestyle. Constipation is a big deal. And then when you
Yes.
add in some of the medications that people take, we get the side effect of constipation. We see it a lot in Parkinson's. Sometimes it's really bad. And so I can only imagine that with all the rigidity, potentially, not everyone gets that, but a lot of people with Parkinson's get rigidity. And they're real stiff. There's a lot of tension. They can't even breathe deeply because they're so tense in the sternocostal, all those muscles around the ribs and everything. They can't take a deep breath. Well, there are things we can do to help to expand that, but I imagine the lymphatic fluid might just be blocked, and a lot of them are constipated. So this could really come in handy for lifestyle quality of life for that population as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, that's a big issue. All of those things that you mentioned are highly correlated to people that get stuck with constipation. And one of the things in relationship to constipation is when people have incessant, excessive stress in their life and they're stuck in what they call fight or flight, or sympathetic dominance, hypervigilance is the name of it. And that survival system slows down digestion and shuts digestion down because your brain says, well, you don't have time to poop or eat because we have to not die right now from the tiger. So you can poop later. The problem is your system never comes out of the fight or flight, and then you struggle with the bowel movements because it constricts the blood flow in that region, and then it slows down stomach acid production, which we may have discussed before. And so you just become stagnant that way through movement. And many people are significantly and severely dehydrated, which is a top cause of constipation as well.
Oh, man. Yeah, we see that so much. And just a fleeting thought here, another thing, and this happens not to a large percentage that I work with, but they're the handful that seem to get these recurring urinary tract infections. It's a combination of maybe they got a cath in there, or a Foley cath or whatever, maybe not. Dehydration. And I'll tell you, I don't know what there is about this, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like the older we get, when we get a UTI, and it's bad, it could happen overnight, and then it's like you have dementia, Alzheimer's completely has overtaken you overnight. And we know that that doesn't happen to people in the real world, but a UTI can mess you up. So I can only imagine that there's probably some kind of a tie, a lot of times constipated too. It makes me think they may need to spend a time in the area of lymphatic mojo, get it moving and stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, one, you want to drink the water so you can flush out the kidneys and the bladder.
Yeah, and thank you. Actually, dehydration was what made me think of that. So I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but that's along that line of you got to get the fluid going in you.
Right, and well, the end route of the lymphatic drainage are the kidneys for pee, where they go. Okay. And when you have poorly functioning lymphatic system, you don't eliminate protein efficiently. So you have higher protein in the body, which makes you more acidic, which makes you more prone to underlying infections in the body, particularly from fungal growth. So here's what I'm going to tell you. That's one of the biggest things that happened to me. I had a lot of health issues a while ago where I was having infections in my body, a lot of brain issues, brain fog, early onset kind of Alzheimer's symptoms where I had a hard time functioning and remembering things. And I was getting a lot of prostate infections and urinary tract infections, a lot of urogenital issues. And they kept putting me on the antibiotics for the UTIs, right? And it would help, but then stuff would keep coming back. And then when I came across lymphatic work later, I realized that the clogged lymphatic system was a big issue with that because you'll pool the stagnation around the lumbar, low back, pelvis, prostate, urogenital region. And then when you get stuck in those areas, like I said before, your protein concentration increases, and you're much more prone to develop candida and fungal infections because of the toxicity in the interstitial fluid. And those are what cause the UTIs. It's the fungal infection. So you have a breeding ground where fungus is designed to take hold because it's sitting in the waste products like that.
Yeah.
And once I cleared my lymphatic system and began to hydrate, I, for me personally, I'm not saying this for everyone, is that I no longer got UTIs. And then my particular, for me, my neuroinflammation and brain fog and things like that significantly improved. And if you want to hear something pretty cool that you may know of, or heard of him, Dr. Jerry Tennant. I don't know if you know Dr. Tennant, but
I don't know, but I know the name.
yeah, you should. He's got a great book called "Healing is Voltage," which is one of my top 5 books of all time. And he's been on
Writing
my
that one down.
podcast. Yeah, you should get him on your radio show too.
Okay.
It's a fantastic book, and I've had him on my podcast. It was my top rated podcast in 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Tennant. And we were talking about that with how many people are getting these type of issues with fungus and chronic candida. And I'm like, I had that, doc, and I would always get cellulitis too, which is a very painful, can be life-threatening issue because of inflammation in the cells of the body.
Sure.
And mine was also due to lymphatic stagnation. So that's one of the first things I tell people you need to look at when you have cellulitis is a lymphatic stagnation issue. But you have to get the cellulitis treated medically first. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he said this. He said, listen, I just want you to think about what you see in nature, because if you look at nature, you'll find answers to a lot of things. And he said, what happens when a leaf falls from a tree in nature and it goes to the ground? It begins to die, right? It dies and it begins to decompose. And he says, well, what decomposes it? I said, well, fungus primarily, or bacteria, because that's their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
They eat dead stuff, right? And then it turns it into something else beneath the soil that the trees can use, because the fungus tree feeds the tree. So everything has a reason for existing. Whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's a necessary thing. So then he said, now I want you to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
What would your body do if it's stuck full of dead stuff they can't get out?
Bad things.
Well, then it's going to do what nature does. It's going to increase fungal and bacteria population to try to kill it for you.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it can't get out. And then I'm going to say, holy cow, that makes so much sense. And then I go, well, how can you help it get out? Lymphatics. But if your lymphatics are stuck, right? If you're stuck full of muck and you're stuck full of waste, your body has to make a decision here. And it says, uh-oh, Perry doesn't have a good toilet system here, and we're backing up with muck. What can we do to try to help Perry as best we can so Perry doesn't get worse and Perry doesn't die?
Yeah, right.
Let's just use what's already here, which is candida is always there. It's just kept in check. But it just says, I can't keep you in check anymore, my friends. You have to help me out. Then it keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. And so does the bacteria, because you have quote unquote good bacteria, quote unquote bad bacteria, but that you need all of them and they need to work with each other and they keep each other in check until there's a tipping point. This is really important. Everything in biology has a tipping point, which means that it's good up to a point where it's no longer good.
Okay.
And that tipping point is where it goes. And then that's why, hey, doc, I felt great yesterday and today I'm a hot mess. What's up with that? Well, your body was trying to heal, compensate, and adapt and protect you as best it can until it hit the tipping point. And then now it tells you, I can't do it alone anymore. I need your help. And all I'm trying to tell people this is just try to use the big 6 and the walking and the moving to change your tipping point.
Okay. I'm going
Does
to
that make sense?
totally. This spurs another question that I'm sure I'm going to hear about. So, one of the questions I'm sure I'll be asked if we don't address it now is how many times a day? You probably
Oh,
can't
I get that.
overdo it, but
I'm so
can you
glad that you asked that
can you
question because
overdo it? Or yeah,
you can
tell us.
overdo anything.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's called MED, minimum effective dose. So
Okay.
anybody in healthcare knows what that is. Okay. Because you see it with medications all the time. I mean, if you need 5 milligrams of something, that's your minimum effective dose. And if you take 10, that might not work out well for you. Okay. Because you
Right.
just did too much. Right. But
Right.
it also goes the other way. What happens if you need 5 and you're only getting 3? Well, then you need a little bit more. So here's what I'm trying to tell everybody. It's different for everyone how much you're going to need. And the only way you're going to know how much you need is to start and see how you feel. So
Yeah.
that being said,
So we got to
you
listen
can
to our body,
absolutely,
obviously. Listen to how we feel. Let
absolutely
me ask
do
you a
too
question.
much
This is
lymphatic
another
work.
thing. So, actually, before we do that, let's just go through these big 6 real quick. So we're talking, we want to get the shoulder area. We're tapping, right? Shoulders. We're going to also do clavicle. How about up under the skull? Do we want to do anything there? Tapping,
Let's go through them
rubbing.
again. Okay, let's
Okay.
go through them again. But I
Yep.
want to cycle back to finish. Very important that people understand this. Is that you can overdo lymphatics for sure.
Okay.
Right. And that means that you did too much, you moved too many things for your body to tolerate, and you can feel pretty bad. Okay.
Okay.
So more isn't better, better is better. So I tell people just do one session of the big 6 to see how you feel. If you feel great the next day, then you have the green light to do it once again and see how you feel. And then you can add it a second time during the day. Right.
Beautiful.
And then you see how you feel with 2. So let's say you did it once and you felt great, but the next day you did it twice and you felt awful. What does that tell you? Go back to 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And if you did it once and you didn't feel great and you felt pretty bad, you don't do it again until your body starts to recover and feels a little bit better. Okay.
So it's possible then that you could do it once, get things moving to a point where it takes more than a day to recover for your
I have had
body.
some people it takes 2-3 days.
No kidding. Wow.
And they get really blown away because it looks so simple. And honestly, it kind of looks silly that, like, come on,
Sure,
this can't do anything. I'm like, when you understand the physiology of what I'm telling you, you would never say that statement again, because it is very powerful. Because the power is in the sequencing. The power is in the order that you do it. That's why it's so powerful. Okay. So I will tell people that when you begin lymphatic work, you want to make sure that you are hydrated and you drink water before you do a big 6. Okay.
Oh, good idea. Yep.
Otherwise, it's not going to work well for you. Okay. And I usually don't like for people to be constipated when they do the big 6 first. Try to get yourself flushed out a little bit first. Okay. So the big 6 is the starting point. And remember, because they're the clusters, right? We got to open the clusters. At number 1, for those that are listening, I'll tell you where it is. If you're watching, you can see it's always at the collarbone on both sides, above and below. So above it and underneath it is where I like to rub on both sides. You always start there all the time because that opens up the drain. Okay.
Yep.
So rub there.
So we start there, collarbone, above and below.
Above and then underneath, the whole thing right there. Okay.
Yep.
Then you're going to go to spot number 2, which is on the side of your neck, at the top of the neck, below the lobe of your ear and behind the angle of the jaw. There's a little spot right there. That's the largest lymph node in the neck. And it's where if you know anatomy, your atlas, your cervical 1 and cervical 2 live right there. So that area there is where most of the motion should happen in your neck. Okay. Should.
Got it.
But it doesn't because people's heads are too far forward. Poor posture.
Right.
So when your head sits forward like that, you just shut down your pump. You just shut down your leg.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's spot number 2. Rub behind the angle of the jaw, circles up and down, lots of different directions, just make directions up. That's number
Great.
2, right?
Yeah, that feels really good there too.
Now we'll go to number 3, and then I'll go back to your questions on the neck, back of the head.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number 3 is at the shoulder joint, the pectoral muscle, right there.
Oh, okay.
So just rub that space in front of your shoulder where your pec is, and underneath and towards your armpit. The whole thing. Fingers in the armpit, go over the pec muscle and around the front where it attaches to the shoulder, and do the other side. Those are called your axillary lymph nodes. Right?
All right. Feels pretty good too.
That's a good one. It's really tight on that area for most people, right? Now that's
I just had my personal best bench press 2 days ago, and I'm really sore too. But it feels good.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it's not very much, but at least I can do 20 pounds. And then
number 4 is your belly.
Okay.
Number 4 is your belly. The whole thing from the belly button up.
Mm-hmm.
So you just rub right there in different directions. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then 5 is where the crease of your pants are in your groin, right there. Called inguinal.
Inguinal, yes.
Yeah. And that gets tight because people sit all day long.
Yep.
And then the other one is behind the knees. It's called popliteal. And that gets really tight because people sit all the time. And that's the one that gets crushed when you fly on an airplane, right?
Yeah.
And so you rub the back of your knees, right? Now, you can go back now and rub the feet. You can rub your hands. You can rub the back of your head, because those are all going to drain towards what? What you just opened up.
Yeah. Right.
Right? So let's think about this. If we know everything in your head and your neck is going to drain towards where? Collarbone.
Collarbone.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I open up the collarbone, and I open up number 2 behind your jaw, number 3, let's say number 3, this is a spot behind your head. Let's just say behind your head is already moving towards your collarbone.
Right.
Because you just cleared the way.
Right.
So now if you want to rub the back of your head, then by all means, go ahead. That's fine. Okay.
All right.
And you always have to just think in your mind, okay? Where is it trying to get to? Where is it trying to get to? And so I want everybody to say in their mind, and if you can, if you're driving, don't, put your fingers on your collarbone and say, all of my lymph wants to get here.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So now that you know that, you rub towards that spot.
Okay.
But you have to clear the big blocks first.
Have to clear the pathway,
which is the 6.
Right?
Yeah. So this is what I want you to think about. I don't want you to start brushing in your feet up, because if you brush in your feet before you've cleared the knee and the groin and the abdomen, you're sending fluids towards blocks higher up.
I've been doing it wrong because I was taught to do it that way, and sometimes you get taught wrong. So totally makes sense I should be starting up here, the clavicle.
Yeah. So
I'm going in the order you said. Yeah. I'll go in the order you said.
Well, I'm going to give you this. So it's not necessarily wrong. It's not optimal.
All right.
Because what I'm going to tell you is this. If you can dry brush your big 6 areas first, then you rub from the foot up. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You will notice a significant difference in that sequence as opposed to starting in your foot first.
Okay.
Because it's just the physics of how fluids move. That's all it is. It's hydrodynamics of pressure flow. It's called hydraulics. When you understand hydraulics and pressure, you know exactly where you need to rub and in what order.
Yeah.
That's why when I tell people that to rub these areas, they say, I can't believe how much of a difference that made. It was just so simple. I know, because it's really, really powerful because of that physics of fluid flow and pressure.
Right, right. So it seems like I think you said this in the last episode too. We were talking about how the body works as synergistically, all systems together, and we label things. The body doesn't label anything. It doesn't know anything like what anything is, because it is just
Correct.
It's a body that does its job. But I have to say this because I want people to realize that the medical world may not know, your doctor may not know about any of this. And here's why I say this. Years ago, I was going through a lot of travel, man. It was just killing me. And I had so much pain and this and that and the other thing. And I'm thinking, well, to this doctor who is no longer my doctor, maybe my lymphatic system is messed up and blocked. She says, well, you don't have edema. Your legs aren't swollen, so it can't be that.
Right.
That's it. I just needed to say that. And I knew already, because I'd already gotten your aquarium. I purchased that program, right?
Yeah. Body aquarium,
And
right.
said, no. I got to go rewatch the aquarium thing and whatever. And she's like, what's that? Well, I heard this is your body's aquarium. Oh, I don't know who said that. That's ridiculous. But guess what? She's ridiculous. No disrespect to her, though. But this is, they're taught to know what they know and look for things a certain way. And, it is what it is. But the power in this, though, the power of knowing this, I don't think it's measurable, right? Because there's so much power in it. I mean, look, I remember when you went through some things a few years ago, the candida and all the excess of that and the fungus. And I remember after the Toronto, when I saw you in Toronto, this is going on 7 years, I think. What's his name? Rick Daigle was there too with his wife. And, anyways, that was a hard time for you. But man, you look at you now, man. You always look great, but you look super healthy, radiant, and pretty buffed and lean. So good for you, Doc.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, the wonderful thing of this is when you begin to do lymphatic work, many people tell me, and it happened for me as well, they lost a significant amount of body weight when they started to do it. Sometimes upwards of 5 to 10 pounds, because you're losing some fluid weight, you're losing some inflammation that's stored in the body, and you'll start to lose some of the body fat as well when you begin to clear the waste out. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh my goodness, this is so great to be it, because some people hit like a wall when they're not able to lose body fat and they don't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons may be the lymphatic system needs some work, which also helps improve your cardiovascular system because they work together, right? That's really, really important. I remember when I was really bad with my lymphatics, I had very poor blood circulation as well. I couldn't walk up a hill without being out of breath.
Okay.
Because I just couldn't get oxygen to my tissues because of the poor fluid flow. Because if you have lymphatic stagnation, you're also going to have vein flow stagnation at the same time, which changes the thickness of your blood, and you have less efficient delivery of red blood cells and oxygen to tissue. So you get it from both ends.
Well, I'm really, really glad you said that thing here, because, sorry, Doc.
It's okay.
I'll do a hard stop and edit that part out. I'm really glad you said that, because I had wondered if there's a relationship or between blood flow and lymphatic health, if you will, lymphatic fluid flow, because it only makes sense that if it's not flowing right in the lymph system, blood might be affected somehow. I don't know if it's venous return back to the heart or what it is, but it just seems like all the others, one system doesn't operate optimally, all other systems seem to be brought down, even if it's just microscopically.
Yeah, I mean, they're all trying to help each other out. If one can't really function well, another one's going to try to take the load. And the same thing with blood flow. If you don't get good blood flow in one place, other ones are going to try to send it to help it. And, your heart has a ton of lymphatics as well. So some of my favorite books are by the cardiothoracic surgeon named Gerald Lemole, Lemole. Lemole. I think he's the first one to do a heart transplant in the United States in the 70s.
Gerald Lemole.
Yeah, Lemole. He's got great books on lymphatics, and he said that the key to a healthy heart is through your lymphatics. So he actually left the world of cardiothoracic surgery and started to teach more about lymphatics when he saw how much heart health changed from taking care of your lymphatic system.
Wow, that's a guy we want to meet, right? Because we want him in our circle. See, it's people like that, people like you, who go out, you do the work, you do the research, you bring it to us, and then we learn and we can live a better quality of life. That's the whole reason I talk to you and people who are the game changers out there like you. I really appreciate what you do, Doc. Always have.
Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you back. Double ditto in return.
Well, I hope when I say this, you receive it the way I intend, which is with brotherly love and respect, which I have 3 mentors who've been the game changers for me. And in their own ways, I do what I do because of them, and I think of them every day. You, Emily, Brent.
No, yeah. That's
Emily Splickle.
Great crew there.
Brent Brookbush. It's like a brother to me, like a little brother. I get to slap him around a little. Not really. He's bigger than me. But this stuff is so important, so important, man. And I'm really glad I know you. Brent's the one who told me about you, so thank you, Dr. Brent. 10 years
I love
ago.
Brent. I haven't spoken to him in quite a while. Please give him my best if you.
I will, for sure. And this radio show is going to start up. We're going to get you on that too soon, in the first couple of months.
Well,
you
would
up for that,
be an
Doc?
honor for me.
We'll reach more people that way.
I'm down anytime you want, my friend. I am grateful for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Well, in fact, when we sign off here, just stay on with me for 1 minute. I just want to ask you one question. And we didn't talk beforehand, folks. We just picked up today, and I was late. So thank you, doctor, for your patience. And it's coming from the radio station, getting my fobs and all that stuff. So any takeaway message you'd like to give to the listeners before we sign off?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on. And there's a couple of things I like to tell people. One is a phrase that my director of operations, Louisa, who's been working with me forever, she came up with this phrase, and we teach it and we put it on our shirts. It's called, when in doubt, lymph it out. When in doubt, lymph it out, which means that I want you to, just take a look at your lymphatic system first and everything, and then check the box, rule it off that it is playing some kind of role in there. Sometimes it's a small role, sometimes it's a big role, but I'm going to tell you, if you're suffering in chronic pain and inflammation, it's going to be a player somewhere. And I want you to check it, because you're going to sadly find that most people won't. But now you know better, like with your experience, okay? And then my other one is that you can't control something in your life until you become aware of it. So the first step towards change is the simple awareness of something. So today, my hope is that you're finally aware that you have a lymphatic system, that there are things you can do to take care of it that don't have to be difficult, that don't have to be complicated. You just have to start, okay? And that awareness will be, let me do the big 6. Let me start walking. Let me jump up and down a little bit. Let me hydrate more. And also let me look for practitioners in my area that I can get some more focused work on if I like. And if you can do that, you're going to make a big change in your life and how you feel. And then my quest for you is to then share that with other people so you can help somebody else become aware and not suffer so much.
Beautiful. If people want to reach you, I know where to go, but stop
It's
chasing
really
pain.
simple, honestly. Like,
Stop chasing pain, right?
stop chasing pain. I'm going to show up kind of everywhere. I've been doing
Yes,
this
you
for
are.
a
That's
long time. You can also find the Big Six program on the stopchasingpain.com, or now I think it's gone so big that you can just type in the word Big Six and you'll see it show up as well. But if you want to find more, it's not going to be difficult. When you
are everywhere, and it's beautiful what you're doing, how the following is growing, but people are taking it and they're running with it too. That's what I love.
Well, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Doctor. Appreciate this so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening, and the best way you can help to support this program and the education we bring is, if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, and maybe even hit notifications if you want to hear what's coming, okay? If you're on Spotify, you're on iTunes, SoundCloud, or whatever audio platform, hit follow, and then maybe share with somebody, because if we can help one more person, it's better than helping no more persons. One's better than none.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, thanks, Doc. Thanks, people, and have a fantastic day. Take care.